Well, how y'all doing today? Today, I got a couple of gentlemen's carry knives. Both of these have been rather popular recently. We have the CRJB Ria. This is the one in their green canvas micarta. I mean, they say green canvas, but it might be kind of green tinted. It's much more olive drab and dust color. And we have the CRKT CEO. And this is the one in, this is the Blade HQ exclusive one in green micarta with a D2 blade on it. And kind of bronzed accents. I don't want to say they're bronze because it's just coloring for the stainless steel. But yeah. Now, both of these guys are quite interesting. This guy's got a super, super long blade on him. And the Ria here is has a little bit more, I would say, kind of an odder shape blade to it. This guy really doesn't want to stand up. Yeah, we'll just put him that way. It's got like a lot of belly as it comes out and around. It kind of reminds me of a Filipino style blade shape, kind of like a tiny barong or something like that. But I actually really like the blade shape on this guy because, you know, having that bit of belly there that actually comes out and back around, it makes it really effective for your standard pull cuts, but it's also pretty efficient at push cut. Like if you're cutting rope, say, or something like that, and you're not cutting it in the air, then you can actually, force it through, and it works out really well. This one in particular, because it's the micarta variant, it's not using D2 steel. It's using, there we go, AR-RPM 9, which is kind of a budget particle metallurgy steel that I don't necessarily know if it would be CJRB or just Artisan Cutlery in general came up with. But this is about the only thing they've put it in as far as full production. Kind of surprised that they didn't do that for the Centros and the Feldspar that also had the canvas micarta there. Now they're being fairly quiet about the composition of these steels because I think they haven't fully patented it or something yet. So they want to be a little quiet about it, but they will eventually speak to it. Essentially, it seems to act a little bit better than D2, but it's stainless, which is great. Because that's certainly a downside to people in more humid climates who don't really like the whole D2 idea. But I can say that I haven't put this thing through an amazing amount of paces or anything, but yeah, the blade steel does a pretty darn good job of holding up. So I could definitely speak to its accuracy and being about where D2 would be, depending on the company, of course. And man, this thing just such a well-tuned thumb stud, and it's riding on bearings. Both of these guys are, but yeah, you just have to kind of think about having the blade become open by slightly pushing your thumb directly up, and bam, it just comes flying out. It's fantastic. And this guy is actually tip-up carry. And that's important. You can actually see that they have recessed the screws there too, which is great. Gives you a little bit more room. So you can wear this with something besides just, basketball shorts and slacks. You can also see a little lanyard bead kind of thing there. It's not the best implementation because it literally can roll either way. It's just kind of free spinning in between the two liners there, but it works if you need it. Now the CRKT, this is a pretty interesting design as well. This is a tip-down carry only. And obviously the reason they did that is because they intend for you to keep this in your shirt pocket next to your probably titanium milled pen or whatever else you might have up there. Now this guy also has a bit of a recessed thumb stud, just like this guy, but it's fully recessed. And sometimes I actually find this to be a little awkward to open. Like I'm used to with most thumb stud opening knives, like directly pushing up. And this guy doesn't really like that. He really likes to have a little bit of outward motion. Be able to get him out there. Man, I polished the heck out of that blade. It's super sexy. Sorry, I was rather proud of that. But yeah, this is obviously a Rogers design. Rather interesting. Both of these guys are running on bearings. I believe both of them are steel bearings, but I haven't actually cracked them open for a little bit. The CEO was kind of interesting in taking it apart. I was actually worried because sometimes when CRKT mentions IKBS, doesn't necessarily mean they're caged, so I was afraid that I was going to open this thing up and just tiny little ball bearings would fall out everywhere. But luckily, they are caged in there. But it is a little bit more difficult to actually disassemble because you have the pivot screw for removal on the show side, which means that you absolutely have to remove the pocket clip to be able to take anything else out. And then this little fiddly bottom bit's actually kind of a pain in the ass to get back in there when you're putting it back together. But, you know, we might get into that. That might be fun. But I think out of the two of them, I actually do like the Ria a little bit more. For one, I'm not hugely sold on exactly black knives. Now, this one has a little bit more of a stone, or I think Kershaw refers to it as a black wash, or some others would call it like a working finish or whatnot, and that's okay. I like those. All right, but for a gentleman's carry knife, it actually seems kind of strange. I'm pretty sure they did do that specifically because it's D2. But if I remember right, they did it for the standard variant that's HCR13 MOV as well. Kind of interesting. But yeah, they did a really good job on the micarta. I mean, the fit and finish on this guy is quite nice, which is great. You can see it's got some dust in there because reasons. But yeah, it's a very thin blade. Now I sharpen this to a 17-degree angle because that's what I generally like to do with D2. But to do that, I removed the pocket clip, the thumb stud there. It was easy enough to do. Just take it off on the backside because I generally sharpen on a belt, and even though I can come in at a proper angle to come back through for it, I didn't want to risk messing it up, so I just pulled the thing off. I've done that on a few knives, especially like some of the Emersons with the thumb disc. I've also done that on, and it's just works out all right. Now this guy, I really didn't have to worry about that because of the placement of the thumb stud that's basically not on top of the edge but behind it, because it's got a bit of a sharpening choil there that's more pronounced than this guy. So I didn't really have to worry about pulling that off. It is unfortunate that both of these knives, because of that design with the buried thumb stud that they are absolutely not ambidextrous. So it's your right hand or you're nothing basically. But man, there's not enough good things I can actually say about this guy. I mean, they both have pretty darn good action, but I do think that the CRJB is using, or just has a little bit better action overall, and the deployment's a little bit more comfortable for me. But they're both absolutely smooth. It is also nice that this has tip up, which makes it a little bit more convenient. For folks in the summertime who always like to wear, like basketball shorts or whatever, because yeah, it's hot. I get you. This is certainly a lighter weight option that will give you a tip-up carry and give you a lot of performance. It's fantastic. And of course, during the winter, because it's micarta on both sides, it really helps insulate with a lot of cold weather. Like I'm here in Denver, and I would not for a minute consider carrying like a fully steel knife in the winter, because it's just gonna freeze, and if it's in my pocket, it's gonna radiate that coldness in and just keep my leg cold, and it's just gonna be annoying. But micarta does a really good job of insulating with that. It does a better job than G10 that I found as well, which it might be a reason why a lot of people are really fond of it. But yeah, I guess I did want to kind of rip these guys apart real quick, because that's usually fun and interesting, right? So yeah, as you can see from this kind of angle, you do actually have to remove the pocket clip, as it's actually one of the screws is attaching to a barrel spacer on that side. So we got T6 for the pocket clip, which is pretty normal, especially for a knife of this dainty size. But man, I do have to say that this thing fits quite well. They did a really good job with the ergonomics for how small this thing actually was. You can see because of that that these two screws are actually different lengths. So yeah, keep that in mind, I suppose. And yeah, here's one of the micarta scales. It's T8 on the other side. That's actually kind of interesting. I figured they would keep it T6 on both. But sometimes they like to surprise me. And that's fine. I suppose they're allowed to do that from time to time. Okay, now I'll actually pull the pivot out. There's pivot there, and then yay, and it popped apart. Okay, so yeah, they have a really nice polish on the micarta on the underside there. I guess it's American sourced, if that matters, but hey, the knife's still made in China, so I don't necessarily know someone who would care about one but not the other. But there you go. I mean, it is nice quality micarta. I will give them that. Alrighty, and then there's a little lanyard hole thingy. I can pull that blade out, and of course, there we go. So yeah, they are caged ceramic bearings, and they are absolutely adorably tiny. Obviously, because this one doesn't have a gigantic pivot or anything. And they do recess into the blade, which I don't know, for some reason I actually like them to recess into liners more than the blade itself. But it really doesn't matter. I think that it doesn't really offer any better ergonomic, or not ergonomics, what's the word I'm looking for? Any more structural integrity or anything. You're still basically removing the same amount of steel from the stress points on it. I just kind of like having them recessed into the liners because it kind of makes things a little nicer sometimes for my own purposes of, taking them apart and whatnot. Okay, well, that one's fun. And of course, we'll put these back together. But I do want to take this guy apart as well. We got T6 on the pocket clip, obviously. And it does kind of have a ledge that juts out for this thing to sit on, which is interesting for putting the pocket clip on. But it does, I suppose it ramps up a little bit. Yeah, that's whatever. That was just a brain fart on my part there. So let's continue kind of taking this guy apart. Here's a screw out of the back side here. And here it is out of the front side. It is interesting that a lot of these guys will do that, where they'll have two screws go into a barrel instead of, having the barrel go all the way through on one side and screw in on the other. But okay, so yep, T6 on the pivot as well, which normally I'd be grumpy about, but what are you gonna do? It's a tiny little knife. So yeah, there we go, and it's not polished on the other side, but it absolutely doesn't need to be. I do actually like the color of these. It does kind of it's a pleasing look to it. And hey, this one actually has the bearings into the liner instead of into the blade. So there's that. And then there's of course the back pin there. And you also notice that this guy actually has a little bit of an interesting thing to it. Now these are steel ball bearings; they're not ceramic, and that's fine. Both of them can do pretty decent work there. You can see that this pen, stop pen, is you can actually push it through the liner instead of it just shoving in and staying there. But yeah, you can see kind of here where they have a little liner going around the bearings there, which is it's kind of an interesting idea. I mean, the bearing cages themselves are already nylon, so I guess you're not really losing anything there. I don't honestly know what the GD means down there. Yeah, there you go. There's I guess the actual model number for it. That specifies that it's D2. But yeah, it's an interesting little knife. I do like that they recessed the bearings into the liners. That makes me happy just from a irrational standpoint. But I'm actually going to save putting both of these back together for separate video. That way people who don't really want the whole Bob Ross experience, they just kind of want the review of the knife and the teardowns and all that sort of stuff, then that's all good. So join me in another video, or if that's not your cup of tea, then I want you to have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.